So I think, let's go through those different incidents. Maybe you could say more about the Red Square event. We don't mean Red Square in Moscow. I need to say that because I always associate it with that when I hear that. Um, but you described that as 100 meter long, 100 meter wide object, and now that was something you didn't see yourself, but you knew the Boeing contractors who were there at Vandenberg who saw that.
I didn't know them personally, but I did have their written statements that they wrote. And over the years, me and my friends would talk about these events, and every once in a while, I would pull out that paperwork and read what the witnesses had, you know, seen that day. And so I have a pretty good memory of what they described, but I haven't really gone on the record because I don't remember for certain. But the good news is, since the hearing, many people have reached out, and some people did talk to those contractors and have more details. So we're hoping to bring out like more details about the actual object and what they thought about it and things like that.
Okay, got you. Okay, and I have a little question about that. Was there any suspicion on the part of the contractors who saw this, or anyone who investigated or looked into it, that it was some kind of sophisticated electronic warfare or an illusion created by an adversary, or even a test of some capacity like that by the United States?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Okay, and you're pretty confident it was a physical vehicle, and it was not aerodynamic, and that the witnesses were very clear that they were seeing a physical object.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay. And so then that brings us to what happened, I believe, the same evening. And you were called to the scene of this event, but this is the event that Chaz witnessed himself directly. Correct, Chaz?
That is correct.
And so could you maybe walk us through that, with as much detail as you can give, because I don't think you've spoken that many times on it publicly.
No. So as Jeff's already talked about, he came in early to be our crossover member between the ongoing and outgoing flights, get all the kind of details that happen, so we would know kind of the events of the day, and if we need to look out for things or ongoing events, we had that knowledge. He briefed what the Boeing contractors had seen on the at the launch facility on the north end of the base, and he just briefed our flight. Hey, make sure when you're out there tonight, you're vigilant, you're paying attention to what's going on. If anything out of the ordinary comes across, please call it in so we can continue to do what we normally do. So we had that knowledge before we went out there. That night, we probably around 12:30, 1 o'clock, we called that chow time. We got one of the launch complexes out on the south end of the base that overlooked the ocean out there. There was 5 members out there, with myself included. One person that controlled the control point, just to make sure no one came in or out of the facility that wasn't authorized, or the area that wasn't authorized. My person, it was me, or my partner with me, we patrolled the internal part of the facility, and we had 2 people on the outside patrolling the outside, make sure nobody was trying to penetrate the restricted area and things like that. About lunchtime, we kind of congregated inside the engine control facility. I describe it as kind of like a big fishbowl kind of object. You have glass all the way around so you can see a complete 360. You've got an elevated position so that you can see the roadway coming from a distance, so you can see vehicles leaving and coming, so you're not surprised. We were looking out over the ocean, just having conversations, eating our dinner, and we saw a light out over the ocean. Not uncommon, as we had a helicopter squadron that did operations out there sometime, training, search and rescue, that kind of thing. So seeing things like that wasn't an anomaly. But as it got closer to the area, that the light got bigger and brighter, and then it got to the point where the object that was at that point portraying that light was so massive you couldn't see the light anymore. I can describe it as it was dark over the ocean, but the object was, as it comes in, it's a square, but as it gets up to you, it's so massive in size. The only way to describe it's like a rectangle football field size object. Again, it's dark. So it's a darker color object. It didn't have any light coming off of the object, didn't have any light on the sides like an aircraft would have, where it's, lighting its position, didn't have any green or red marking lights like most aircraft have. It had no propulsion system. It made no audible sound that, helicopters make audible sounds, aircraft make audible sounds. It just a big giant floating object over us. As it stopped about 100 yards off of our position, at that point, everybody inside the control facility is doing the looking at each other. Do you see that? Am I seeing that? Are we seeing what we're seeing? Are we crazy? And you sit there for a minute because you don't know how to process it, because like Jeff had said, you're not trained to respond to those kind of incidents. There's no checklist that follows, hey, if a UFO lands on the base, this is what you should do. But you do revert back to what you're trained to do, which is to respond to incidents on base. So that kind of launched us into our response. Someone called it in over the radio that it was a large object hovering over our position. At that point, me and my partner start to go outside the facility to get inside of our truck to go drive around to make sure nothing else is going on. At the same time, the other two people leaving the facility to go get in their vehicle to go in the perimeter. At the same time, we're running to our vehicles. It takes off. The only way to describe it's like a shot out of a cannon, 1,000,000 miles an hour towards the north end of the base, and it's gone. At that point, we still get in our vehicles. We still drive around to see if there's anything else going on, still calling in over the radio. This is the last known position, and that kind of thing. The whole thing lasted 45 seconds to a minute and a half. We did call it in. Jeff came out as the law enforcement supervisor. And then I believe our flight chief came out, who was the overall ranking member of the team, came out to talk to us as individuals. We conducted our statements, did our own individual accounts, and then Jeff took that back and did a big report to kind of showcase the entire incident.
Wow. And I mean, I have so many questions about this. My first question is, what were you feeling afterwards? I can imagine while you were responding, you weren't, you might be feeling fear, or you might be feeling an adrenaline rush, but what were you feeling and thinking once the thing had taken off?
After the fact, if you had to sit, a minute to sit there and reflect, calm down, like you said, adrenaline goes away. You're in awe. You're confused. You're second guessing yourself. You're trying to figure out, did I really just see that? Have I ever seen something like that before? Where did it come from? Where did it go? What was it doing? A little bit of fear. I mean, that's in there because never having seen anything like that in my life since then or before then, knowing that we didn't have that I knew of in our arsenal, a little bit of panic and a lot of questions myself of, going forward, what was that? What was it doing? And what does it mean for all of us here at Vandenberg?
Yeah, I can imagine. And I want to ask a question, to both of you, and, answer it to the extent you can or the extent you feel comfortable.